coming out tonight. My name is Barbara Worcester. I am a Revenue Customer Service Manager for the town of Hilton Head. I've been with the town about 14 years, started as a revenue collector, and just got the position as Revenue Customer Service Manager. I'm here with, as you can see, a varied panel. We're going to ask you to hold your questions till the end, but we've got hopefully everybody you need here to answer any questions should you have them. Tonight we're going to be talking about the short-term rental ordinance, the short-term rental permit, the different regulations that you must follow now, and the permit portal, as well as site plans. In May 2022, the Town of Hilton Head Island Council passed an ordinance about regulating how short-term rentals will operate on Hilton Head. Some of these things that we cover everything from parking to noise regulations and so forth. The ordinance applies to privately owned residential properties rented to visitors for less than 30 days. Right now, the town is getting the message out. We will not be accepting applications until January 3rd of 2023. By the end of December, you will receive information from us with account information as well as information to the new portal on how to obtain your permit. Some of the short-term rental regulations that the ordinance addresses include, but are not limited to, permits, licensing, and fees. As many of you may or may not know, if you operate and have a short-term rental, you must obtain a Town of Hilton Head business license. That was passed through Act 176 of the South Carolina Legislature. As of January 1st, 2022, you are required to obtain a business license for the rental of your property. In addition, if you rent on your own or through a company such as Airbnb that does not have a license with us, you will be responsible to collect and submit the local accommodation tax. Other items that this ordinance addresses are parking, trash removal, noise management, complaint tracking and response, and violations. Now, many of you homeowners already are good neighbors and good homeowners that probably follow most of these requirements. We are putting this out so that we have an even playing field, that you know that anybody next to you is following by the same rules that you are and is as compliant as you are. The short-term permit fee. The ordinance establishes the assessment of the short-term rental fee every year. It's limited to recovering the costs that are going to be required for code enforcement violations, compliance, etc. Every year, Town Council will determine the fee, and it will go into the next year's budget. This year, the 2023 short-term rental permit fee is $250 for each property. So if you have 5 properties, you will need to obtain 5 permits. This is different from the annual business license, where you could have 1 business license with 5 properties. I know it's kind of confusing, but we are here to help if you have any questions. So short-term permits are valid from January 1st to December 31st. They're non-transferable, so it is the owner's responsibility to contact the town, let us know if you're no longer renting, or if you're renting long-term, or if it's your primary residence now, and so forth. Some of the short-term rental general regulations. The owner or short-term rental agent. Now, short-term rental agent can be anybody simple as a neighbor, or it could be your property manager. We need to have somebody that is capable and physically present at the short-term rental property or take responsive action within 1 hour of said complaint. The owner is required to promptly display in the short-term rental their contact information. I know most of you do this already. I've heard that many of you have a binder where all this information is placed. In your packet, you'll see that there's a form where you can fill in your owner information, and you can put it right in the packet in your loose leaf binder if you want, so that it's displayed for your guests. Parking regulations. Now, some of these regulations may not apply to everyone. If you are a villa or a condo, this may not apply to you. Primarily applies to those with single-family dwellings. We are asking that each owner designate the number of parking spots allowed for their guests. Each parking spot must be an improved spot, at least 9 by 18 feet. No longer will we allow parking on the streets, on the grass, or on pine straw. We're trying to see if we can get a handle on the parking, as I know most of you have problems with your guests if they come with too many cars. Trash regulations is another issue we've been having, and I'm sure, again, it may not apply to you if you live in a condo or a villa. If you already have garbage pickup or standards by your POA, we understand this. Some of this may only apply to may apply to single-family dwellings. Trash site must be fenced or screened in, must not be visible from the street nor neighboring property. In addition, we're asking that the owners provide the trash pickup information in your packet for your guests so that they understand the rules and regulations. And we're also asking that everybody make sure that trash containers remain secured to avoid spills and pests and things of that nature. So you'll see that most of this is for the guest as well as the owner. Noise regulations. As I'm sure maybe it's happened to you if you're staying on your villa for a week and somebody next door is having a big party and they may forget that Hilton Head Island has a quiet time. So we're asking you to please post the noise regulations also in your condo, villa, or single-family dwelling. We just want to remind everyone that we do have a quiet time from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. We do have a printout for you that you can use to, again, put in your packet for your guest. Safety regulations. Again, most of these you probably follow already, but again, we want to be sure that everybody is compliant. We ask, like I said, again, we do have somebody from Fire and Rescue that will be able to answer any questions should you have any further questions on what the requirements are. But as of now, you must have a fully operable building and fire, smoke, and carbon monoxide detectors. You shall maintain at least one fire extinguisher. You shall maintain unobstructed escape routes in the chance of fire. We're looking again for people who maybe put bunk beds at an exit or out by a window. We're no longer going to allow that. We want to make sure that all escape routes are free should there be a fire emergency. Prior to making any agreement with your leasee, it's your responsibility to let them know if there's a pool or hot tub and what, if any, safety measures are in place. Miscellaneous regulations. Town asks that if we provide you with any kind of literature that you supply to your guests. One such example, it would be a new brochure that we're putting together called the Good Neighbor Brochure. Basically what this does is let everybody know what the rules and regulations are. Everything from the sea turtle lighting situations to bike riding to short-term rentals, etc. That will be available on our website shortly for you to download and to print out and provide to your guests. We also ask that the owner, which I'm sure you all do already, but we are now want to be sure that the owner inspects his or her property to be sure that you remain compliant. In other words, check the property. Are the escape routes unobstructed? You know, are your carbon monoxide and smoke detectors or the batteries fresh? Things like that so that you remain compliant. So what the town has done is we have contracted with a company called GovOS to assist us with this process. Basically, they're going to provide us with a 24/7 online call center. It will be a completely paperless registration process for you. So you will go on, you will complete the application. If you have to supply a site plan, which homeowners of single-family dwellings will have to supply, a site plan is merely well, actually, what would the best way for you to, I'm going blank. Site plan basically to show where the trash area is and that you meet the parking regulations. We'll discuss that further as we go on. In addition, we want to make sure that the homeowner or short-term rental agent is listed and their contact information is always updated so that your guests can access that should they need to. We will have dedicated customer service support for the permitting, as well as any other questions you may have. I'll also be available, of course. In addition to the short-term rental portal, GovOS is going to provide us customer support to enhance our safety and community preservation. This will be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week complaint hotline with live operators. So the public will have an option to complete an online complaint form or just leave a message with their complaint. Support will then contact the short-term rental property owner or short-term rental agent, whoever is listed, to try to resolve the issues. If any issues escalate, we do have code enforcement, and we have 2 officers dedicated to assist with compliance. Requirements for single-family dwellings. Again, like I mentioned a little earlier, these folks have a little different issue in that they are required to have a site plan. During the application process, it will ask you to upload a site plan. We know that many of you may not have a site plan, so we will have an app available that you can link to. It'll give you directions on how to complete the site plan, and then you can upload it into the application. If you have any further issues, we also have dedicated staff that are ready and available to help you. We're actually encouraging some people, if they want to get started on the site plan ahead of the January 3rd, 2023 application kickoff, they can get started with that by contacting us, and we'll assist you with getting your site plan started. What else is required to operate a short-term rental? So we briefly discussed earlier about the business license. As I mentioned, that is a requirement as of January 1st, 2022. Business license is a little different. It's based on gross income. First 2,000 gross income is $92.50, with each additional 1,000, $1.70. So for an example, if you had 10,000 in rental income, the annual business license would cost you $106.10. These are due by December 30th, April 30th of each year, and they're also non-transferable. In addition to the business license, if you rent on your own, or if you rent with a company that's not licensed with the town of Hilton Head, such as Airbnb, you are also responsible to collect and submit the local 3% accommodation tax. Now, if you have that situation, if you need a business license and/or the accommodation tax, we're asking you to reach out to us now, because we are in a compliancy stage right now where we're just working with everyone to get compliant. Although we do have penalties in our code, at this time we are holding any penalty in abeyance provided you come forward and get compliant. Basically, the main thing you need to know in terms of this process is that we are here to help. We know that it's new standards, new regulations, but it was time for the town to take care of this. We've been a little bit behind some other towns. We've now finally caught up, but just know that we're here for you if you have any questions or if you need any assistance. And with that, if you have any questions, we're going to move this around so we can take your questions.
Don't be shy. Hi, I'm Judith Stanilovich. We rent just very little at our condo because it's our home. However, my question is, because I live at the south side, what do you plan on doing with this new revenue? Is it going to be brought back to us, to our problems in our area, or do you have any plans for this new revenue?
I can speak to that. The permit fee was established just to cover the cost of the...
You.
I can't hear you.
We'll try this. The permit fee was established just to cover the cost of administration, and so we have a software provider, we have some staffing, and that's really what all that's going to do, and town council will have the opportunity each year to set the rate at whatever is needed, and that's all.
Well, I don't know. I was concerned last spring. I think it was May or June. We had an incident in the new park that was built, a shooting. And if it wasn't for an individual who happened to be there, as a matter of fact, it was a tourist, he kind of stepped in and took care of the situation. Now, I would like to see a little more security down in the South End. And if we're going to spend this kind of money, all of us here, and I'm sure there's a few of us that have more than just one rental, I'd like to see security. And I'd like to see that to be kind of on the top of the list. I mean, you've listed a few things, fine, but that doesn't help us down there. And with the way this country is, I am very concerned. And I think it's something that the council should start to look into. Now, there was another woman on, she doesn't run her place, but on down Dunes Lane, another situation in January, February last year, I walked the island every morning, and she had a break-in. Well, she had happened to be there. Well, she hurt the person, and she had to hide. She was fearful for her life. It took the sheriff's department to get there 15 minutes. Now, what could have happened to that woman in 15 minutes? In today's world, what could have happened? That's why I'm bringing it up, because we are concerned. And I walk the island every morning, 5 miles. I walk the South End, Dunes Lane, blah, blah, and we just, we is down there are concerned for the safety. Now, I'm not here in the summer. I'm gone for 6 weeks. However, with all the 2 million people down there, what could possibly happen? So I think collecting this money, I think we could find some place in the budget to increase some security and give it some thought for this coming season. That's all.
You know, law enforcement is a sheriff's office function. I work with the sheriff's office for 31 and a half years, and that is a concern I will relay. I can assure you that shooting followed a dispute, because I was actually working as a public information officer for the sheriff's office when that occurred at Low Country Celebration Park. That was unfortunate, followed a dispute over a vehicle break-in, and these kids were armed. And that, you know, that is something that's very, very hard to prevent, regardless of security. Right.
But I'm thinking maybe some security people just walking around during the height of the season just to make people feel
Ma'am,
more safe.
can you please come to the microphone,
Okay.
please?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Bike patrols might be a good thing. You know, put some officers on bikes. They can move around quicker and get to people faster, maybe. I don't know.
A lot of communities use bikes, yes.
Yeah, just through the heavy season.
And there's been an incredible shortage of law enforcement and
It-
public safety in general. Fire
Yes.
departments as well over the last couple of years. Things are getting better.
Mm-hmm.
The staffing's getting up there again, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But in the summer, our school resource officers that are assigned to the schools during the school season are on the beach and they're patrolling extra. So we have extra bodies out there. But again, I'll relay the concerns and
Yeah, the bike
I'll be
thing should-
assessing it as well. So.
The bike thing might be a good thing to, you know, how the local restaurants have people come in and they recruit them extra help.
Right.
The police department could do something similar to that on the internet, recruit extra help just during the summer season,
Seasonal
train
help.
them, and put them on bikes. But anyway, I'm going to move to my questions now. Thank you. I'm Charlene Nichols, and I run Charlene Nichols Hilton Head Island Rentals. And so I represent 4 or 5 other properties under me. And my question was, do each of those have to have a license? I think they do, and that's what I have recommended to them last year. Okay, okay. And the information on the quiet time and the good neighbor thing and all that literature, will that be available with PDF where we can download it and email it to our clients as well? Okay, all right. Okay. And my last question, the VRBO thing and Airbnb. the VRBO thing and Airbnb. I know that I'm collecting for Airbnb and paying the 3% on the VRBO. They are paying their 3%, right? Okay, all right. I just wanted to confirm that. I appreciate that, and that's everything. Thank you very much.
Hello, I got a couple of questions. The business license that we applied for earlier this year,
Okay,
we paid based on the gross amount of money that we received, but I use a management company.
that is correct,
So
okay?
I had to pay that amount for the
That is correct.
amount of money. So I'm paying that, and then the management company's paying the 3% to Hilton Head.
Correct.
In addition to the 7%. All right, that clears that up. All right, secondly, this about there's an issue and the owner needs to be available and respond within 1 hour. So I have let's say I have a noise disturbance after 10 p.m. I'm going to call over to the tenant. Hey, 10 p.m. quiet time. You need to be quiet.
Correct.
10:30, they're not quiet. 11:30, I still got a complaint. I call law enforcement because I'm not going to go over there. Are you expecting me to go to that place and try to disrupt, try to get people that had too much to drink?
No, not at all.
They're having a pool party?
Not at all. Well,
Right, because I want to say, I have a unit at North Shore Place, all right? We have a pool up on the 4th floor, basically the top floor. We've had people come to our building before that are not tenants, and we've asked for law enforcement to come over and take care of them, and they've told us it's private property, we can't help you. All right, this is exactly, it has happened. The president of our association can verify that. It's happened several times. And we are gated. We got a gate for the garage. People know the code because they let people in or someone lets a friend in. It happens. But we've not had assistance from law enforcement to get people to leave our building. Now, with your ordinance on January 3rd, I potentially am going to have that same issue. And it says here, I mean, you can answer that first and I can go back. I want to talk about these infractions, more than 2 convictions of violations, and I don't really know what I'm going to be convicted of, other than I'm going to be, potentially my permit's going to be suspended pending a hearing, which I don't know how long that's going to be, because if I have an incident like week 1 in June and I don't have a hearing until October, I can't rent all summer long. There's a lot of questions. This is very vague. This doesn't iron out all these details that affect thousands of owners that pay the majority of the taxes
I can
for
understand.
Hilton Head Island. And this is just a blanket. We're going to charge you. You're going to have to be available at 3 in the morning. We already have experience where law enforcement doesn't help in our building, and it's only a 48-unit building. I just see this potentially being a very big issue for owners. And in fact, also, we don't know if we're going to charge $250 this year or $500 next year because we got to support the administrative and the website and GovOS. It's just like an open door for expenses on the owners that have helped make Hilton Head what it is. So I've given you a lot, but I really have a lot of concerns about this, and it's going to affect everyone here and those that are not here. And I'll sit down.
No, it's okay. Those complaints we will have to substantiate those complaints. And if it's your renter, yeah, you should address it. If it's not, there's going to be no action on you. I can assure you.
I got a person at 11:30 that won't be quiet.
Sir, please,
you speak into the microphone. Sorry.
I just don't want the same thing to happen that's happened in the past. Because now there's a law that I got to follow. I got to have the support of law enforcement because that's going to be my hearing, and I don't want to lose my income that pays for my condo, so I can enjoy being in Hilton Head. And if I get in the jam down the road, I'll sell and go to Florida. And I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people are going to look at that as well. Regardless if Myrtle Beach is doing it, and, other South Carolina properties, it's going to affect us tremendously if we don't have the support to, I think I made my point.
No, you have. And if there's a disturbance and a crime is being committed, disorderly conduct, whatever it is, law enforcement should respond. Private property or not.
The point is they don't, and I've heard this all over the island.
Okay.
Do I understand, though, that with this new regulation, each property and each address is going to have a name and a phone number of that person that's renting, and so law enforcement's going to have an easier access to contact the owner of that property and say, you are having a disturbance at your property. If you cannot handle it, we can. Is that maybe the new procedure? No?
You're going to find the vast majority of people, when there's a disturbance, are going to call 911.
I know.
That's what they're going to do, and that's the
Right.
appropriate thing to do at the time. But
if I call 911 and I say condo 223 at Seaside Villas is loud and obnoxious, you're going to be able to go to your new list of owners that are renting and see condo 223 Seaside Villas. Well, that belongs to Mrs. Smith, and here's Mrs. Smith's phone number. I'm going to call Mrs. Smith and say, Mrs. Smith, are you renting your condo this week? If you are, someone in there is disturbing the property. This is the police department. Are you able to take care of this?
now
If not,
codes enforcement's going to be doing those follow-up calls.
that's what I'm saying.
And we would ask you to get their compliance, your leasee's compliance.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. We're not
Right.
looking to write a bunch of tickets.
Right.
And the convictions you're talking about, I don't see that as a real possibility unless it's egregious. I don't.
To me, it seems like this is going to be an advantage to helping secure our properties and to secure the disturbances, because we are putting in your all's hands the names and the numbers of the owners. Then that, like you say, you can reach out to them and say,
Absolutely.
or, if you're renting your property today, you're having a problem, can you deal with it? If you cannot, we need to send patrol officers over there.
Well, and GovOS will get that call on the hotline. If you don't call law enforcement, they call the hotline or send in a complaint.
Right.
They'll get a response from GovOS, where GovOS will call the owner or property manager and say, could you contact your tenants?
There you go.
The vast majority of these incidents will be resolved before
Yeah. So
code
see, this is
enforcement
gonna
or law
actually
enforcement get involved.
circle that loop where we've had a drop in communication with the owners and the renters, that no one has an idea they're even renting, and they've got these strange people in there creating havoc. They've not had the ability to get a hold of who's responsible. This is going to fulfill that loop. I think it's going to help. In other words, that's what I'm saying.
And back to what that gentleman was saying about people in a common area of the pool that don't belong there, that's trespassing. That's a criminal offense. 911, contact law enforcement, they come out. That's not a short-term rental issue, right? That's a trespassing issue. Is what
I've
I'm saying.
had success in getting people out of the building in the past. That's all I'm saying.
I'll get your information, and I'll give you my card before we leave. Yeah, they're trespassing at that point, right? Yeah, it's appropriate for law enforcement to deal with.
Hi, I might have just missed it. So there's two things as a short-term rental we have to do. We have to apply for this $250 thing and do our short-term rental business license. Are we on the hook to know when we have to do this, or is there some kind of communication with the link of where we go? Or am I going to have to remember by April 30th every year, I've got to go do this?
No, you will receive a renewal form every year. As a matter of fact, April's about to get started with the renewals from 2023. So she'll send out renewal forms third week of December, third week of December.
Actually, the property owners will receive the renewals a little later because the permitting needs to happen first. So our permitting portal will open on January 3rd. And once you get your permit, then you can pay for your business license. The business license is due April 30th. So my intention is to mail out the renewal forms in February to give you a little time to get your permit. And that'll be a little different this year. Next year, you'll have a different timeline because the permit will be due by January 1. But we will always notify you. So you'll get a mailing, and then we send email reminders. And the email has a link for your login for your personal account for your business license. And then you would also receive an email notification for your permitting as well. And then that will give you a link to go in and for you to pay for your permit. So you definitely will be notified. We don't expect you to just suddenly remember and try to figure out how to obtain the license.
So assuming you're sending this to my home address, not my address here in Palmetto Dunes, for example.
Right, it's going to be your mailing address on record.
Okay.
So however you registered your business license, that would be the mailing address that we would send it to, and your email address as well.
Okay, and then second question on that business license. I know when I got it, it said you have to post this. Now, I rent through Island Getaway. I use them as my go-between. I don't want the renters to know my home address or my name. Is all kind of more anonymous. So that's just, we don't really need to post that, correct? It says in there, posted in your window.
The business license tax law does state that you should post in a conspicuous place, but our practice with the property owners has just been that you should have a copy available in the event someone asks for it. Just as an example, if a code enforcement officer showed up and they would need to know who the property owner is at that point, they would then ask for a copy of it. So most people are keeping a copy with their property manager
Yeah, so that
instead
they
of
would.
posting it in their private home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not something we are enforcing and
Right, 'cause
making
I
you
don't
do.
really want
Yeah.
people knowing. And then just one last thing. So I'm a homeowner. How do I know how many vehicles are allowed at my home? I have a big driveway, probably put 15 cars in there if I wanted to. So what's the rule on how many cars can be allowed in a private home?
9 by 18 spots. You'd have to measure out your parking.
Kidding? I have to measure. So everybody, you're going to enforce that and make sure everybody's measuring their driveways? Just want to make sure.
It's part of the site plan for,
I believe that's only for short-term rentals, not for residents, correct?
that's correct, but again,
Correct.
it's, yeah.
Only if you're doing short-term rentals.
You don't have to measure for your private home and upload a site plan, no, it's
Well,
a
it is
private
my
home.
home, but, I have a driveway.
Right.
So
You should know how many cars can fit there, 9 by 18 spots. I mean,
So that's going to get logged somewhere, so that if
Gonna get logged?
I'm only should have 4 and there happens to be 5 there one night, someone's going to, say it again? No, I do rent my home, that's what I'm saying, so just trying to understand.
parking's become a big issue with short-term rentals. People park in the streets, and neighbors' driveways, things like that. So we got to make sure that whoever leases your property is aware of how many cars can fit there, and not to have 6 instead of 5 that are allotted for, okay?
My name's Rick Ross, and I own some short-term rentals here. Oh, sorry about
Sorry.
that.
Thank you, sir.
All right. My name's Rick Ross, and I own some short-term rentals here in a gated community on the island. And I just had some just quick questions on what's the definition of an improved service, I mean, from the town for driveways?
Something that's, it's concrete, it's asphalt, it's gravel, compacted. It's not pine straw, so it has to be improved.
Okay. So, and as far as running short-term rentals, you said there needs to be 18 by 9 foot improved space in the yards or in the front of the house in order to park cars, to be able to have so many cars per rental unit?
That's correct, and it has to not be in a setback or buffer, those parking spaces.
Okay, so, all right, so if I have 4 cars, if I want to advertise 4 cars to be in my rental by your definition, I need 18 by 9 feet for a car, I need a 36-foot long driveway and 18 feet wide. What if my driveway on my as-built, when I built the house, is 16 feet wide? Do I start a construction project and put 2 more feet of driveway on each side and submit, or how does that work?
You don't have the required space dimensions for those vehicles, you could apply and get a permit to expand your driveway.
Okay. So you're prepared to have like 2,000 homes in Hilton Head pour gravel all over their front yards to be able to comply with this ordinance of 18 by 9 per parking spot?
The dimensions of the parking spaces are a requirement that we'll be enforcing, yes.
Okay. But you understand that you're going to probably have an overwhelming number of people applying to expand driveways and pour gravel over their front yards. So, I mean,
Or, you only have so many spaces that you can rent to, so that's what your site can accommodate.
okay. So, and is there a maximum number of cars at a short-term rental allowed?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Not this time, so there's no maximum, and this space dimensions does not account for any garages where they're inside the home.
If your tenants are allowed to park in the garage and it's available to them, yes.
So the inside of my house has to have 2 spots that are 18 by 9 inside the home, in the garage?
If you're allowing the leasees to park in your garage and your garage accommodates 9 by 18 spaces, then those can count as spaces.
So you're legislating in this ordinance that my home needs to be inside of my private home with a garage door down and no access to the public or seen by the public. Inside that garage, there has to be I need to have 18 by 9, 2 spots, poured concrete inside my private home in my garage.
If you're using them to meet the requirements of the ordinance, then they have to meet the dimensional requirements, yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. The second thing was, there was something about trash and fences around trash areas. You know, I live in a gated community with an ARB, and the ARB has in writing what we require for fencing around our trash cans because we're a private community and we make our own standards. We have fences that are around our trash, but the trash can be seen from neighbors by the side, and we don't mind that because that's what our neighborhood voted on. So is the town going to make us put in fencing to hide the side view from neighbors? Because all of our neighbors in our community agreed we don't want that.
The requirement is that it's screened and shielded from view. It sounds like what you're describing is that it meets that requirement.
It doesn't, actually. It is not screened from the side. It is indented into the footprint of the house. So straight on, you can't see anything. But if you were just off at an angle, you'd be able to see the side of the house, and you'd be able to see trash containers that are in a crash storage area that's recessed into the house. It's how the neighborhood was designed. It's how our ARB determined we would like to have the access to them. And we decided we did not want fencing up in that area. So I'm not sure how a town ordinance is going to rearrange private communities' ARB guidelines.
I don't have an answer to this specific question right now, but we can certainly look into it.
Okay, because that would be, again, a giant construction project for neighborhoods that have one ARB standard that the private community voted in, and now the town thinks that that's not appropriate. So, you know, that could cause some major changes in large neighborhoods. That's very costly, and most neighborhoods are probably not going to want if they have voted it one way and the town wants it to look a different way. So, and just the last question, it said you needed one fire extinguisher, I think, per house, but maybe more. Where is the standard of where you need more than one fire extinguisher, or how will we know?
My name is Russell Rogers, and I work for Hilton Head Island Fire Rescue, and we will be providing additional guidance on the website. But there's a difference between, you know, a 1,200 square foot condo and a 7,500 square foot home, and the amount of fire extinguishers that are required. But in general rule, it's one per floor level. So that's what we're going to provide in the guidance online.
And the escape routes that you talked about that we need to supply, that would be an escape route to a window for exit from the home on different floors. Is that correct? I mean, escape routes to downstairs. I mean, you're basically showing all the escape routes from all the bedrooms, basically, correct?
You just need to maintain them clear of furniture and provide those routes. You don't have to provide an escape plan. It's a great idea, but you just must make sure that they are maintained clear so you can't encroach upon required exit widths and that kind of stuff. Okay. This mostly has to do with, like she said in the example, was putting a bunk bed up against the window. So now the window's inaccessible in an emergency. That's the kind of stuff we're going to be looking for.
Okay, so what is the egress requirement on windows or size? You know, if I have a bunk bed that's 3 inches encroaching a window, is that too much, or it can't be encroached at all? Because it could be a huge window and a small encroachment.
It's going to be dependent upon when your home was built. There are size requirements that are code related, but it's really depends upon when your home was built.
That's going to get kind of complicated, though, because the homes are all over the map on ages here. So it's going to be kind of difficult to assess. You know, can my bunk bed encroach 3 inches, or can I have to take it out of the room? I mean, it's going to get really complicated. And escape routes, I guess, can go to a window that's a second story, and it doesn't have any way of getting out other than the second story. There doesn't need to be any devices to get out of the house or anything like that.
You're not going to be required to provide devices, no.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Thank you.
Hi. I have a question about the 1 hour rule. I'm just questioning, how does that actually work? We have a property manager. So let's say it's 11 o'clock at night, they reach out to the property manager who's closed for the day, and they don't reach anyone. So what happens?
Actually, I'm laughing because somebody here has someone that is in that business, and they do get called, unfortunately, all hours of the night to respond to some issues. That's why I was chuckling, but go ahead, finish your question, I'm sorry.
Well, I would imagine some property managers have these emergency lines and some don't. I'm not aware that mine does. So let's say they get a call at midnight. There's nobody there at midnight, they can't respond. Or say they do respond, but they can't reach me because it's midnight and my phone is turned off at midnight. I don't know about you guys, but so how does that work and why 1 hour? That seems so onerous.
Well, part of the requirements is that you are available by phone.
At 2 a.m.?
That is part of the requirements. You are available by phone.
So if someone calls
Either
you at 2
yourself-
a.m., are you answering your phone?
No, either yourself or your short-term rental agent. So whoever you designate to be available for that hour, that is part of the ordinance for that to be available by phone, email, some kind of contact, so that if we receive a complaint and if it goes to Bob or it doesn't go to Bob, that we can reach someone. So there has to be a designated person, whether it is you as an owner or whether it is your property management company.
Does anybody in this room think that 1 hour is a reasonable period of time? It's ridiculous. What if you're working and you're in the middle of a business meeting and someone's trying to reach you and your meeting lasts an hour and a half? All of a sudden
I mean, these, obviously, we're not going to look at the clock and say we're not hearing from you in a half hour and send Bob out to you. But we're expecting within a reasonable time frame.
I just think when you make a rule that's not enforceable, that's not reasonable, you're setting people up to fail. Why wouldn't you put a period of time that's reasonable? An hour is not a reasonable period of time.
We'll take that under consideration and think about that. But, we thought, in other words, an hour to respond by email or by phone would,
You're a surgeon. You're in the middle of a surgery. It's a 3-hour surgery. You come out and you see all this mess. I mean, this has happened. This is life. This is people's life. And if you set it up for something that's unreasonable, people are going to just stop paying attention to it because it's not reasonable.
I can understand where it seems that way. But at this time, it is written the way it's written. Unless we change with town ordinance, unfortunately, we are required to follow these rules as they're written.
I would...
So, I understand I understand, and maybe in time we can discuss it and see if we can revisit that 1 hour portion on the ordinance. Unfortunately, as of right now, today, I have to follow the ordinance as it's written.
I understand. I would request, if that's at all possible, to revisit it, because I think that it's not tenable the way it is.
Absolutely. Thank you for your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm a resident, and I have a condo that I short-term rent. So I'm a rare bird. I can vote in this town, okay? Well, a lot of short-term rental people live out of state and out of the area. They depend on short-term rental companies, as you well know, the professional companies. I see in the first 2 lines here, short-term rental agents are required to do something. But if they don't do it, they are not penalized. Somehow, the town decided to not hold the rental management companies who are licensed to rent properties in the state. Mm-hmm. You do not require, and I appreciate, you're all professionals, you're your employees, you did not make these decisions. As a matter of fact, my observation is the professionals that are sitting here probably are very competent on, my opinion, I've only been here a year now, is when I look at the town, are there any town council people here?
No, sir.
They really should be the ones that are trying to answer the questions that you guys are trying to answer. It's a shame. The lady just presented a very strong argument. This is set up to fail, I believe is what she said. All right, let me just tell you this. In my previous life, I managed a large operation. And I look at this and I say, well, this is a job description for me as an owner of a short-term rental. It's another way to look at it. It's my job description. And if I ever wanted to get rid of an employee, I could have HR write up a job description that is very difficult to execute, and he or she could get fired. That's a ploy. That's what you do.
I see.
I honestly, and I want to add to that. I watched a presentation when they had a kind of a workshop. Your boss, Mark Orlando, got up and he had this PowerPoint thing. One line item on there that he was just using the thing as talking points, basically. Excellent presentation. The guy is really sharp. He said, on the line item, it said short-term rental conversion. And I saw that, and I said, I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, short-term rental conversion. I had to think, what? I thought it should have said short-term rental regulations, because that's what the town is doing. They're regulating. Is the town really trying to make short-term rentals go away? Kind of like my analogy of writing up a job description is so difficult, it's designed for failure, as the lady pointed out, that you're going to actually get rid of short-term rentals, because there's a lot of people in the town, they don't like the short-term rentals, that's for sure. They don't like tourists even. In my personal opinion, being here a year, the tourists that I see on the street are smiling, they're happy. They're some of the nicest people in this town. And I know some of the neighbors, they're nice too, but they're not always smiling, they're not always happy, and they don't keep their places up to speed. Every short-term rental I know in my neighborhood is really good looking from the street, and if they're not good looking, if they're not well maintained, you can't rent them. So I don't even know why I'm talking to you guys, because you didn't make these decisions, okay? And I realize that you're professionals, you're working for people who are really not professional councilmen. They're just ordinary people who sit up there and make sometimes really bad decisions. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your input. Anybody? Certainly.
Kind of caveat on what this gentleman said and what the lady said
Microphone.
over there.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, to caveat on what they said. Where's the teeth for the management companies? How are we holding them accountable? If I get a violation, I guess I just fire them and go to another management company. But if I live here now, but if I'm, let's say Ohio, a lot of people come down here from Ohio, and I have a rental property. In this 1 hour, I'll go back to that. But in here, and you briefly said email, and it doesn't say anything about email in here. All right, but this does say, this general regulation, shall be available by telephone at all times, blah, 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 or taking other responsive action. What does that mean? Other responsive action. Can I call 911? Have I satisfied the intent of this regulation?
I'd say that'd be reasonable right there. Well, you got a noise complaint, they're going to be advised to call 911 anyways.
Because
okay. Now,
yes, it says I'm the owner. I got.
this is a conversation that an owner should have with that rental company, saying, "Are you?
Well, I mean,
are you going to assume? Are you going to assume this role? Then you don't hire if they're
let's
not."
Let's say now I'm managing it myself, but I live out of state. That's what I'm saying now. I get the part. There's no teeth in it for the management company. Yeah. Nothing in here says they're going to lose their permit. Right. I don't think, unless I misread it. It's all me, the owner. But now let's say I'm an individual renting it on Airbnb or a Hoofy or wherever, Verbo, and then I can call within an hour. So I guess somebody's going to go up to this huge home. I don't own a home, by the way, but there's a home across from North Shore Place. They have an outside pool. They're out after 10 o'clock in that pool, and you can hear them. Now, what's the definition of quiet time? I can hear them. I can hear them swearing. I can hear them getting another beer. It's 11:30. It's midnight. What I got to do? What do I have to do? I've got to walk over to that. Now, again, midnight, me, or not my wife, of course, but we got to walk to that house and try to find a phone number. Or I guess I could just call 911. Because it does say the contact information of the owner has to be prominently displayed.
You're dealing with, again, you're dealing with a potential criminal act. You call 911.
Well, they're violating quiet time. Is that a criminal act now?
Oh, it's disturbing.
Is that what we're saying now? That's a criminal act?
That's an ordinance.
Right.
I just want to be clear.
It's an ordinance that the sheriff's office can enforce on Hilton Head Island.
So I'm just going to call 911 is what I'm going to do. Are they going to come and take care of it? And did that satisfy my 1 hour? That's what I'm asking.
I think you know the answer.
I'm just afraid of not being able to rent here anymore.
That's exactly.
And then I'm going to have to try to sell a property that,
You know, if there's a problem, you get a phone call from me and we have a conversation. Okay?
I mean, that's all. Listen, Bob, I
don't worry.
understand that.
Yeah.
It's all well and good, and we all want to do the right thing. But
Right.
at the end of the day, if this thing goes south next summer and I can't rent my property, and it was just like, well, we all said we're all going to give each other a hug and make it work. But I don't know these people that come and rent my property. I just know their Zelle went through or whatever, you know?
Right.
And I just have a lot of concerns. And like you said, the town council's not here. I guess we're preaching to the choir. Is that what you say?
We're going to be, we're going to be, I can speak to this, sir.
They work for the council.
Yeah, I got that.
Oh, I
but
work
they
for Mark
didn't-
Orlando.
You guys didn't pin this on paper.
I
though.
can assure you, we're going to be reasonable in our approach to enforcement, if that makes you feel better.
I just feel
okay?
like I've got to call 911. I'm not going to go over to somebody who's been drinking all day and tell them to be quiet. I'm just not going to do that.
You know,
So,
you're putting yourself in
911 is-
danger to do that, so I would agree with you right there. That's more of a law enforcement issue right
Yeah,
there. Okay.
I just have concerns about it not falling back on me when it's not satisfied.
If it's, we're going to be reasonable in our approach, so I mean, we're common sense people. I'm going to look at it and say, is it really his fault or is it the
Because
renter?
I'm expressing I'm concerned about this ordinance.
Understood.
I'm very concerned about it.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Melissa Robin, and my issues are related to parking, and I don't own a home. But I am an environmentalist, and best practices today are not to pave over front lawns for parking. And, you know, the same way you wouldn't design a mall for Christmas time shopping, right? That's like one time a year. So let's just play this out. I have a 5-bedroom home, and, you know, in the course of the season, yeah, there are going to be some large groups, but maybe day to day, they really aren't. You know, it's a family with 4 kids, and each of my kids has a bedroom. And I just would love to put in the record, you know, as these site plans come in and you start seeing people panic and they start converting what's really nice and green, whether it be grass or pine needles or whatever, to meet the parking requirements, I don't think that's the look that you want. And I don't think that this has really been played out from an environmental perspective. It even seems contrary to a lot of the regulations that exist to protect wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas. So I think with any ordinance, there's always an amendment process. And I just think that the result of what you want for organized parking, you know, not to impact your neighbors and all of that, I'm all for that. But let's figure out a solution that makes a little bit more sense for visually and for the environment. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, we want to thank you for coming out this evening. Like I said, if you wouldn't mind signing in, this way, if you have any correspondence or whatever, we can reach you. If you need my card, I'll be more than happy to help you. Feel free to reach out to us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you guys for coming here and putting up with us.
Right on.